Sound design. How important is it really? How do we do our sound design and where do we get our music from? All of this in this video. My name is Damien Cooper and welcome to Monkey Pixels.
We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
There's a lot of people out there saying that music and sound design is the most underrated thing when it comes to filmmaking. And I agree. I didn't do so in the beginning though. When I started with filmmaking, I come from a photography background and I'm a visual person. So I was really into all these transitions and all the color grading and all that stuff, but sound design, not so much. So in the beginning I just took a generic song, just edited to the beat and that was it. But then when you get more and more into actual storytelling, that doesn't really work that much. Because first of all, you want to have the story laid out first, the way you want to tell it, and then you need to underline all that with the right music. And that also goes for sound design, because you want the person to actually feel like they're there. And that you can do with just ambient sounds, like when the person is in a forest, you kind of want to have the birds and all the leaves and the wind and all that kind of stuff. So you really feel like you are there with the person. And that also goes for portraying emotions in a short film. So when the person is feeling anxious, you want to have anxious music. Maybe some underscores, as well as sound designs that are a little bit of creepy, especially in a narrative film where you want to portray an emotion and want to be in that character's feeling. Sound design is a great way of actually doing that. Location sounds, for example. If your movie or your video clip or whatever stars in a city, for example, you want to have these ambient sounds that are typical for a big city. That is traffic and a little bit of wind noises and maybe people chatting in the background. But don't be too obvious. Just whatever you do in sound design, it has to be subtle. Because if you're really on the nose with your sound design, it doesn't really sound believable, and that is all you want to have. And that is why it's so underrated, because you don't really notice it most of the time, but it being there makes all the difference in the world. So let's start with the most obvious thing, and that is the music. So where do we get our music from? Because that is a question a lot of people get asked most of the time. We have actually different sources of music for different kind of projects. First of all, this is not sponsored at all, and we paid for all these services ourselves and we use them on a regular basis, and that is just from our personal experience. So first of all, we use Artlist. Artlist is great because it's really affordable and it gives you all the licensing you need. It's just generic songs, but you can use them for all the personal and commercial projects you could imagine. Be it for a big client or for a TV commercial or for your own YouTube channel, whatever it is, you pay a yearly fee, which is, I think it's $200, and then you can have access to their entire library and use it for whatever you want. So if you have a lot of smaller budget to mid-budget clients and you also do private work, this is actually the right choice for you because you can use it without any additional music licensing. So for example, you send the client your first draft of the video and he doesn't like the music, you just exchange it to another song and there's no extra cost whatsoever. So then for our own YouTube channel, we use Epidemic Sound. Why do we use Epidemic Sound? The great thing about Epidemic Sound is that they have a huge library of songs, but it doesn't only come with a generic song. It comes in 4 different versions, so you get the entire final mastered song, but you also get the different stems, and that means you have the drums, the bass, the instruments and the vocals all separate. So you don't have to play the entire song all the time. So for example, you want to have it all in one piece, but then the video slows down a lot. So you don't want to have the vocals and all the bass and all the momentum you want to have in that song. So you can just filter it out and just have the bass playing as well as the drums, for example. And then you can play around with it a little bit differently. Here's a tip: if you use Epidemic Sounds or any kind of service that offers this, take markers in several spots of the song in significant moments, so you can always, when you want to cut in and out, you always find yourself where you can underline these different stems underneath each other so you don't get lost and have to do some manual matching afterwards. Also great about Epidemic Sound is they have a huge library of sound effects. There's actually everything you can imagine, from just different city noises to different kind of footsteps. And for one video we were looking at horse noises, and there's actually high quality horse farts. So if you're ever in need of a horse fart, Epidemic Sound is the right place to be. The way Epidemic Sound works is that it's only for one YouTube channel. That could be if you manage a client's YouTube channel, or if you're just creating it for your own. And you pay a monthly fee, and then you have all the access to everything on there. The way they work with the pricing is that the smaller your channel is, the less you pay, and the bigger your channel grows, the more you have to pay, which I think is fair, because if you have a really huge channel, then chances are you do make a lot of money with it, and it's only fair if you pay a little bit more for music licensing. So then there's the third thing, which is a little bit more elaborate, and it's called Filmstro. So if you have a short film and do something narrative like we did,
dare to be the Joker in a world full of Batman. Travel. Explore. Conquer.
then you really want to be able to edit it on point. So we used Filmstro for our short film, The Betrayal. And for our short movie, In the Moment. Which you can find on our YouTube channel. And let's say for In the Moment, we wanted to have a really build up. So at one point, it really everything is there, but right after the song should slow down drastically to just have the end credits and roll everything out. And with Filmstro, you can actually do that because you have 3 parameters, and that is depth, momentum, and power, and you can keyframe them individually to where you need to have it be in the particular part of the video. So for film music, I actually, if you don't have the budget for a music composer, which we usually don't have when doing our own short movies for our YouTube channel, then Filmstro is actually a really great tool to have really realistic film music. I mean, still, you have to know what you're doing, and we're just really getting into the whole thing of music composing, if you can call that, because we're not composing music, we're just setting the keyframes. But that is actually a great tool, and it's way cheaper than hiring a music composer. And then there's the fourth option, which I highly recommend if you have the budget for it, and that is actually hire professionals. We're not professional sound designers or music composers by any means, but if you're on smaller budgets for smaller clients or for our own YouTube channel, there just isn't the budget to hire a third or fourth person to do the sound design for you. If you have that budget, definitely go for a professional, because that's why they're called professional, and they will give you the best result you can imagine. So as for sound design, where do we get our sound effects? There's different versions actually. Like I already said, Epidemic Sound has a huge library for sound effects, but like I mentioned, it's only for your own YouTube channel. And then we work with Final Cut Pro 10, and there's actually a pretty decent sound library in there. You can use all their stuff too. And then there's another option, and that is creating your own sound. So for example, for The Betrayal, there was this one scene where he's biting into the burger. And we couldn't record audio on set because our recorder didn't work, so we had to recreate that in post. There's another scene in a music video we recently shot where we didn't record audio in the intro scene, so we wanted to recreate everything in post, from the footsteps on gravel as well as carpet, as well as the switching on the lights. So we actually had people doing all that stuff afterwards to the video playing and recording it externally and then matching it with the final footage. So what does a timeline look like with a lot of sound design? Let's actually watch that right on a computer. So here you can see Final Cut Pro 10 with our short film right now. We used a lot of sound designs here. As you can see, there's hardly a lot of video. It's only in 1 or 2 timelines, but then there's lots more going on and lots more layers of sound underneath. So we distinguish between 3 different types of sound, and that is first, it's the dialogue or the voiceover. We had a voiceover for the entire thing, so that is what you can see here in the blue. So the first thing is the dialogue or voiceover, which you can see here in the blue. We had a voiceover recorded for our short film to have a little bit of message portray. So the next thing are the effects. And with effects, I mean all kinds of sound effects, and that goes for ambient sounds, for street sounds, for animal noises, all that kind of stuff. These are all the sound effects. And lastly, there's the music part. And that actually is self-explanatory. So what kind of different sound effects do we use? We use ambient sounds, and that goes for wind noises. For example, if you see the time lapse here, having a bright wind noise in the back actually kind of underlines where he is. That goes as well for when he's in a park, where there's people chatting in the background. If he would be in a subway, we have some subway noises in there that are just typical for the surrounding the person is actually in. The next sounds are more on the noise. For example, if you have an animal, then you want to have these animal noises. Or if you see some water, then just have the water dripping so you can actually feel being there, because it would kind of look weird if you would see the water but not hear it. And then there's also transition noises. So these are made up of swoosh and swish noises that enhance a zoom in or a swish pan, so it doesn't really feel as unnatural and out of place. So, and then the last thing we do is we add some rises, for example. So if you really want to have a build up, or you want to portray some kind of emotion in a horror movie, or maybe you want to have a little bit of tension coming up, then rises are a really great thing. They're also a really great thing to transition from one scene to another.
Don't get stuck in the what ifs and maybes. Just do.
So you can use them subtle, but if you use them right, I think rises are a really great way of enhancing your storytelling. So this is how we edit our videos when it comes to sound. Again, it's not an in-depth tutorial, more of an overview, but I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. We will do more of these kind of tutorials on our YouTube channel soon, so consider subscribing if you're into that kind of stuff, and I'll see you on the next video.
Right now.